Online brokers have been at the forefront of introducing innovative products and services to the investing community, but that's not necessarily what customers say they value the most. On this IBD Explains, we break down IBD's best online broker survey and what investors need to know. Joining me is IBD's personal finance and management editor, Matt Krantz. So, Matt, what are the important attributes investors say they value when it comes to choosing an online broker?
Yeah, so IBD's customers are some of the most demanding customers you'll find for brokerage services. They want the best. They are not willing to put up with anything second rate, and they make it very clear. So their number one consideration is security. They want to make sure they can trust their broker. They want to make sure that their money is secure and safe. Sounds like a kind of a basic request, but that's their number one request. Also up at the top is performance. They're very into, getting good executions, getting solid execution, having a lot of uptime. When you've got top-notch investors like IBD readers, they don't want to deal with any downtime because they've got trades to execute.
And customers say they want brokerages to get the basics right, but what types of innovations are happening in this space?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Our readers want these brokers to focus on getting the basics right, just as you said. But the brokers want to compete against something else because it's hard to just say we do the basics right. It's not real appealing in a marketing campaign. So there's all kinds of whistles and bells. We're seeing early entrees in AI, some interesting chart tools, also some mobile applications. So the brokers are trying to kind of push investors to look at other things, but like you said earlier, they really want to make sure the bread and butter gets done right.
So you mentioned brokerages offering new tools like charts, but how do new products and services rank in terms of customer importance?
And one of the things I was most surprised with is how important customer service is, because I always think of our traders as kind of being so professional, almost professional level that they don't really need a lot of help. But that was actually pretty important. And I think that's where a lot of the innovation's happening as well. These brokers want to make sure when you call them, they've got tools in place to get you to where you need to be so you don't have to press one for this, press two for that, and all that mess. So I think a lot of effort's going into customer service, and I think that should pay off.
And you mentioned trade speed and execution. So how does that factor into the overall picture here?
That's really important. It's not as important as security, but it's pretty high up. I mean, when you're trading with IBD's methodologies, you want to make sure that when you make a trade, you're paying the price you think you did based on your analysis. You don't want the price to move way too far. And that's why I think that's really important for a lot of our investors and investors in general.
Now, we've seen a lot of investors entering the market over the last few years, but how have interest rates contributed to the competitive environment we see now among these brokerage firms?
I'm so glad you asked this because I think this is a dirty little secret in the brokerage industry. A lot of people leave money sitting around in brokerage accounts and they figure it's being quote unquote swept into a high yield account. That is not the case at most brokers. Most of the time, your money gets swept into something paying basically zero. And it may not be a big deal when interest rates are low, but when they're high, like they are now, that's actually fairly significant. I mean, it can mean hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that you're just basically giving free loans to the brokers. So the brokers are starting to compete in this level, but it's really important for investors to pay attention because I think you need to take the extra step to do the homework to see what your cash is doing with interest rates so high.
And it's not just looking at what your cash is doing, but it seems like a lot of these firms are offering some pretty sweet incentives to attract customers. So can you talk a little bit about what that may look like?
Absolutely. So as you've mentioned, it is competitive. There are many online brokers and they all want your business and they want it badly. And they're willing to pay for it. When I say pay for it, I mean pay thousands of dollars for you to switch accounts. So it's definitely worth your while. Some of these promotions, I won't name any individual ones because they change all the time. They're pretty lucrative. I mean, it's not that hard to pick up an extra two, three, $4,000 for moving an account. With that said, there are some pitfalls to it that you have to be kind of be mindful as well.
Yeah, like, as you mentioned, not only these big bonuses, but some companies are also offering stocks as well. So how should investors be managing these freebies?
Yeah, so you have to really read the fine print. So a lot of the free stock deals are kind of, I'm going to say gimmicky. You don't really know what you're going to get. You don't know when you can sell it. You don't know how many shares you're going to get. They always throw out big numbers like thousands of dollars of free stock, but it's usually like $5 or $10 is what you actually get. So you need to really read the fine print. The other thing you need to be careful of is sometimes it's not worth your while to move your money. If you have to sell a bunch of stuff and you incur a huge capital gain, that can trigger a tax hit that's much bigger than the incentive. The other thing you need to keep in mind is you may have to keep money in some cash, and that, as we talked about earlier, can actually be costly. So you have to make sure that you're getting the best return in light of high interest rates. So your money, in other words, might be better off just being in a high yield savings account.
So, Matt, with all of this in mind, who are the best online brokers rated by investors this year?
Yeah, so we've got a group of four that kind of rose to the top. We've got Ally, which rose to the top, Fidelity, Schwab, and Bank of America Merrill. These are some of the ones that always come at the top or almost always come at the top. They do a really good job covering the basics, but also being on the head of vanguard technology such as AI. These are the ones that really our investors really gravitated to.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for your insights today.
Oh, thanks for having me.